I want to call this Senate Veterans Affairs Committee meeting together. Today we're here to take stock of how the VA is doing and where it's headed in 2022. I want to welcome our only witness today, the Honorable Secretary Denis McDonough, for today's discussion. Mr. Secretary, you have been a great partner, and I appreciate your leadership and your transparency and your candor. You initially assumed your role in the middle of a pandemic, and we all commend your team's efforts to care for and vaccinate as many veterans as possible in the fight against COVID-19. To date, more than 3.7 million veterans have been fully vaccinated by the VA, and more than 105,000 veteran spouses and caregivers have been vaccinated by the VA through our Bipartisan Saves Lives Act, which was enacted earlier this year. Running VA is a challenge, not just because it's the nation's largest integrated healthcare system, but because it plays a unique role and it plays in all of our communities. VA provides veterans with wraparound services and coordinated care, and it makes huge investments in training our nation's health workforce. It also serves as a national backstop to overwhelmed hospitals and health systems through its fourth mission. And unlike the private sector, the VA has the benefit of watchdogs organizations like the Office of Inspector General and Government Accountability Office that point out deficiencies and opportunities in VA care and programs. This helps us, Senate, ensure that the VA is doing all it can to provide veterans with holistic, high quality, and timely care, something that we're not fully insured when veterans go into the community for their care. As we look to the year ahead, I know that there's a shared commitment of this committee and of yours in toxic exposure. Veterans cannot afford to wait any longer for the care and benefits that they've earned and deserve. I look forward to working with you and Ranking Member Moran and other members to ensure that these veterans are not left behind. Another issue I want to highlight here today is the Caregiver program. The Mission Act required VA to expand the program to veterans of all areas by October 2021. The VA has delayed full implementation until October of next year. By missing this deadline, veterans and their caregivers have to wait even longer for the support and resources that they are due. I would like to get your assurance that the VA will work to expedite this timeline while also ensuring veterans are not unfairly denied. I know you share this commitment to do right by our veterans because you always have. I look forward to hearing more about your nearly first year on the job and where the VA is headed. And now I want to hand it over to my friend and Ranking Member, Senator Jerry Moran.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And Mr. Secretary, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service specifically as the Secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs. The Kansan in me has to give you a compliment. I appreciate the way you've conducted yourself before I provide some criticism here momentarily. And while we're smiling about that criticism, it is sincerely offered. I don't want to make light of it. Congress determined that the most effective way for veterans to receive health care is to provide them with a choice of where they receive that care, in the VA or from a provider that is in their community. Under the Mission Act, the law is clear. The access standards, through the access standards or through a veteran's own consultation with his or her clinician, VA must provide that choice. Despite what the law says, I continue to hear, my staff continues to hear about veterans through the press, through disclosures to my office, of those people who have not been able to fully exercise their choice because the VA administrators are discouraging the use of community care and even overruling clinicians who seek community care for their patients. I'd planned to comment on your inability, the department's inability to provide me with answers to what should be a routine oversight request as we investigate these reports and these disclosures. However, the department provided us with your responses to a request that stretches back to October the 4th, yesterday afternoon. Should I have been provided this information in a more timely manner, we could have had a more robust conversation today. I might have been better able to analyze your answers to my concerns on a topic that is critical to me and, in my view, critical to the health of our veterans. Unfortunately, requests related to community care are not the only outstanding oversight requests. We still have not received a response to our letter from October 27th seeking information and data related to the coronavirus vaccine mandate. Although the vaccination deadline is passed for all VA employees, the committee has had very little information on what impact the mandate has had on the workforce. I appreciate the views, this is the positive point, I appreciate the views we received from the department on the Cost of War Act. These views and cost estimates will help determine how best to provide health care and benefits to veterans who were exposed to toxic substances. I applaud the VA's recent efforts to establish presumptive decisions related to toxic exposure. However, we have yet to be briefed on the findings of the VA's end-to-end internal review that resulted in the VA's presumptive decision-making pilot program. The result of that review is important from an oversight perspective. It also can help us better understand the mechanics of the VA's process as we draft legislation on this important topic. I expect us to continue working closely together to identify the remaining gaps in the VA's authority, refine operational impacts on estimates, and develop legislation to address veterans sickened by exposure to toxic substances. Mr. Secretary, I look forward to your testimony, and I thank you for your service. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Thank you, Senator Moran. I'd like to welcome our first and only panelist of the day, the Honorable Denis McDonough, Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Secretary McDonough, the floor is yours.
Chairman, thank you very much. Ranking Member Moran, distinguished members of the committee, thank you for your support of veterans and for the opportunity to testify before you today. Our mission at VA is very simple, and it goes back to what I said when I first testified before you back in January. We must serve veterans, their families, caregivers, and survivors as well as they have served us. That's the promise we make at VA, and between the pandemic and everything else that's happened this year, keeping that promise to vets has never been more important than it is right now. Fortunately, throughout the past year, VA employees, many of whom are vets themselves, have stepped up across the country to fulfill that obligation. Employees like Bobby Smith in Tennessee, who helped a veteran that had been struggling with alcohol and substance abuse find a purpose again through our compensated work program. Like Lindsay Daly, a call center supervisor in Arizona who spoke at length with a veteran in need, found out that he was teetering on the brink of homelessness and got him housing assistance before it was too late. Or like Herman Watkins, Michael Foster, and Brian Hudson of the Alabama National Cemetery, who saw a surviving spouse grieving at her husband's gravesite, discovered that she was struggling with suicidal thoughts, got her the help she needed, and, as she describes it, saved her life that day. I tell those stories because those public servants aren't the exception at VA, they're the rule. And the work they've done during the pandemic has not only helped us respond to COVID, but forged us into a stronger, better department for our nation's veterans. We've seen more patients via direct and, I underscore, community care, processed more claims, and held more benefits hearings than in any previous year in VA's history. We've massively ramped up telehealth and teleappeals, allowing us to meet vets where they want, when they want, in unprecedented ways. Our outpatient trust scores among vets rose to 90%, above 90%, the highest in years. And we've vaccinated, as you said, more than 4 million vets and others, and led the charge in federal government on the employee vaccine requirements. We've cared for non-vets as part of our fourth mission, deploying staff to hotspots and providing beds for hundreds of COVID patients in need. And our cemeteries have not only stayed open during the pandemic, but expanded to 6 new locations. So, the state of VA is that we are now providing more care, more services, and more benefits to more veterans than ever before. And we're doing it by driving toward 4 fundamental principles: advocacy, access, outcomes, and excellence. Advocacy. Advocating for vets is a team effort from the White House to VA to Congress to vet service organizations. And this year, that team effort has resulted in life-saving legislation like the American Rescue Plan and the Save Lives Act. It also resulted in an FY22 budget that delivers for veterans, and for which I ask Congress to appropriate funds as soon as possible to avoid a year-long continuing resolution that would directly harm our nation's vets. And it's resulted in real progress and new presumptives on environmental exposures, making President Biden the first president to proactively provide benefits to vets who have fought our wars in the Middle East and South Asia for the past 30 years. And more importantly, ensuring that thousands of those vets are finally getting the benefits they deserve. Second, access. We're making sure that veterans have access to the best care and services at home, in the community, and at VA. That means supporting caregivers. It means finding the right balance between direct care and community care, because veterans deserve a thriving and sustainable direct care system, one that ensures that future generations of veterans will enjoy the same great VA healthcare that past generations have. I underscore here in the letter, Senator Moran, I was responding to a letter of November 12. So it may be that I missed an earlier letter, but in any case, I wanted to get that in the briefing we gave to your staff, to you, so we could have that kind of conversation today and continue what I've considered a very rich conversation in private as well. It means reaching out to every vet who deferred care during the pandemic, which we're doing through VHA's Moving Forward Together campaign, to let vets know that we are here for them, ready to offer timely, face-to-face, world-class care. And it means deploying an electronic health record system that improves access outcomes for vets wherever they get the care. Third, on outcomes, which drive everything we do, because vets, not us, are the ultimate judges of our success. Two important outcomes are addressing veteran suicide and veteran homelessness, two phrases that simply should not exist in the English language. On preventing veteran suicide, we've held more telehealth sessions than ever before, massively ramped up our lethal means safety efforts, and reached out to every single veteran in our network to let them know that they are not alone, especially in the aftermath of Afghanistan. And on ending veteran homelessness, we're making progress in Los Angeles, where there are more homeless vets than anywhere else in America, therefore building momentum toward housing every one of the more than 40,000 homeless vets in the country. Addressing these issues is a top priority, because one veteran who dies by suicide or who is homeless is one too many. Finally, on excellence, I can just underscore one more time that in this administration, nobody is going to have to fight to get the quality care, benefits, and services they've earned, no matter who they are, where they come from, or who they love. So that's the VA right now, delivering more care, more benefits, more services to more vets than ever before. But the state of VA is not just where we are now. It's about looking around the corner to where we're going. Let's be honest, there's some real challenges. Looking ahead to this winter, we're going to be releasing the Air Commission recommendations. And I again encourage each of you and your staffs to get the briefings from our teams now on the market assessments in your states, because we're on the verge of some very big decisions here. And you should understand the analytic basis for those decisions. At the same time, we may be facing an increase in COVID, which is already brewing across the country with the Delta variant, even as we seek greater clarity on Omicron. But I promise you this, we will learn from everything we've done over the past 20 months to meet this moment. We're already doing that in a place like Michigan, where we have more than 35 beds at the ready for vets and non-vets alike. And in places like Nebraska and Washington, where we've deployed staff to state veteran homes to make sure they have the capacity and training they need to help keep vets safe through this coming surge. The bottom line is that we will learn from last year to prepare for next year. We'll see veterans through this surge and all of those coming challenges. We'll work with this committee and keep you informed every step of the way as we do it, because vets, their families, caregivers, and survivors deserve our very best. And with your continued help and partnership, we will never settle for anything less. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today. I look very much forward to the conversation and your questions.
Mr. Secretary, thank you for your statement. You have been on the job for almost a year. I don't need to tell you how important the job that you are doing is for our veterans, vitally important. So what has been the biggest challenge and what has been the biggest success for the department during your tenure?
Biggest challenge is most definitely the pandemic. It's colored everything we do. It impacts our vets and it impacts our workforce. And so as I said in my opening remarks, take great pride in the fact that we have led the nation on vaccination, both as it relates to veterans and thanks to you all veteran spouses and family members, as well as our workforce. I'm equally proud of our work on toxic exposure. The biggest complication that we face is the flip side of the pandemic, which is our workforce is now 20 months into extraordinary efforts. And there's no mobile work options for clinicians in hospitals and clinics. They're working under constant challenge associated with contracting COVID. They're working in scenarios where their kids are, over the course of the last year, at home schooling. So I worry a great deal about ensuring that we keep that workforce supported and its morale where it should be given its high performance.
So if you could, quickly if you could, tell me what your top 3 priorities are going in for next year.
One is getting vets timely access to world-class health care. 2 is getting vets timely access to world-class benefits. I consider those 2 things to be core course requirements. Anything else we do is extra credit, meaning if we don't perform on getting timely access to care in the direct care system and in the community, and we don't get timely access to benefits, anything else we do won't matter. The 3rd priority is what you hit at the end of your remarks. We are out of the gate, I would argue, strong on toxic exposure, but we're nowhere near where we need to be. And I'm looking very much forward to continuing that progress, including working with you all.
Appreciate that. So right now, it appears that we're going to be working on a continuing resolution at least till the end of January, maybe longer. I hope not, but maybe. Maybe for the full year, actually. Included in the Senate Appropriations Committee's passed 2022 is mandatory funding needed to pay veterans benefits resulting from the Agent Orange presumptive, the new Agent Orange presumptive. There's also discretionary funding to hire hundreds of claims processors, additional processors. Can you discuss how the VA is going to pay these veterans their earned benefits and reduce the claim backlog if new funding is not made available?
Well, I'm very concerned about a year-long continuing resolution. I think you just hit one of the big detriments, which would be a $259 million decrement from what we anticipated having to invest for toxic exposure at VBA, staffing, and advancements in, for example, the digital GI Bill. But there's also would be a decrement of $941 million, for example, in community care. That's a substantial hit. Our challenge would be making do with a smaller allotment for people. We're out in the market right now hiring 2,000 people. We have about 900 already on board. They've begun training. Under that scenario, we could get those under a continuing resolution, we could get some of those 900 in seats. So we could continue to process some claims, but it would inevitably lead to a longer backlog.
So my daughter's CEO of a hospital in the private sector. She's had a very difficult time getting nurses. There's not enough to begin with, and now with the traveling nurses getting paid big bucks, she's having a lot of the nurses leave. Could you just give me a quick update where the VA is as far as the workforce and what you see the challenges, and if there's anything we can do to help you meet the challenges of a fully staffed VA? And I can do the same for docs if you want.
Yeah. Look, first and foremost, I just want to underscore one more time how proud I am of this workforce. Notwithstanding the huge challenges that they've confronted, they're performing extraordinarily well, first and foremost. Second, we have and I talked with Senator Bozeman in Arkansas about this last week. We have a series of OPM waivers that allow us, for example, to hire people in as quick as 3 days during the pandemic. Those are about 5 or 6 provisions that are tied to the national emergency associated with the pandemic. if that national emergency goes away, we want to work with you to incorporate those hiring authorities into authorization, into statute. That's one place we can work together. That includes finding nurses. Point 3, we're asking the appropriators to give us some flexibility on what we call the 3 R's: relocation, retention, and retraining, which would allow us, within the existing budget envelope, to compete more aggressively to keep our nurses and to keep our docs, including our specialists. We will, as we finish a review of other authorities, come back to you with some requests, and this is basket 4, where we might work together with your forbearance to see about doing away, for example, with the discrepancy between Title V employees at VHA and Title 38 employees at VHA, because the multiple systems binds us up in unfortunate ways, but it also, Title V is a lot less workable, frankly, for us than Title 38 in a highly competitive market. So I appreciate the question. That's a start of what we're thinking. We'll come back to you near the start of next year with some additional ideas of how we're thinking about nurse pay, doctor pay, importantly, medical center director pay, which is one of the big challenges between Title V and Title 38.
Appreciate that. Senator Moran.
Chairman, first of all, on the idea of a continuing resolution, there is absolutely no reason that Congress cannot get its work done. A continuing resolution is damaging, as you described, to the Department of Veterans Affairs and, most importantly, the veterans it serves. And there is no legitimate reason that this Congress cannot resolve its differences on the appropriations process. And I pledge to you and to Senator Bozeman, the ranking member of the Veterans Appropriations Subcommittee, Milcon VA, and all my colleagues, that we ought to be all in on this, and we ought not let anybody have an explanation, an excuse for why this can't be done.
Senator Moran, let's get her done.
Let's get her done. Let me start, Mr. Secretary. Recently, you were interviewed on a number of news programs, and you indicated that if a veteran is in need of urgent mental health services, the VA will provide that veteran with a same-day mental health appointment. Is that correct? And could you walk me, the committee, through how that process works?
Sure.
That's a great development. It's one of the things I worry about in rural America, where if you need mental health services, if you're suicidal, you need that attention immediately, and the VA, in some instances, is far removed.
Yep. So I want to distinguish between emergency care and urgent care. So where if we have a veteran who is in emergency circumstance and mental health requirement, for example, manifests at an emergency department or manifests on the veteran crisis line, we can get that veteran seen that day, telehealth or in person, depending on distance. But if you come to us through veteran crisis line, you come through us through an emergency department, or you happen to manifest somewhere else in a CBOC, a community-based outpatient clinic, or in one of our hospitals, we can get you there. Urgent care, the word you used was urgent. Urgent care is a degree less emergent. And what we've looked back and done an assessment over the course of the pandemic. And somebody manifesting urgent care needs, mental health or physical health, we are seeing an average of less than 2 days.
I think I used the word urgent.
You did.
In the more
well, that's why I wasn't. I'm not trying to parse here, but I want to make sure you understand what I mean, which is
distinction.
And emergency would mean suicidal ideation, for example. And look, this is why we have, and you guys have given us as many resources as you have given us for the veteran crisis line, for example.
Is this a new development?
Meaning the timeline,
the timeliness of the capability to timely provide that immediate care, that for that day care, is that something that is new?
It's always been our goal. Obviously, that's the definition of an emergency. But the advancements at the Veteran Crisis Line, for example, allow us to do that. So what happens is, veteran calls into the Veteran Crisis Line, suicidal ideation. We can locate where he is, and during the time of that communication, can then be in touch with the emergency department where he is closest to get him then linked up to the emergency department. So the technology has advanced to such a degree that allows us to do that. When precisely that happened, I don't know.
7 days a week, 360 days a year?
Correct.
Secretary, throughout the pandemic, the department has maintained that Atlas telehealth sites have been a critical component to deliver care. I no longer remember, I think it's your predecessor was always talking about the value of that Atlas pod. I've been working with the VA and the American Legion for more than a year to secure Atlas sites in Kansas. And you and I were in Emporia, where we knew that was a site in which an Atlas pod was being placed. My staff informed me today, as I came into this hearing, that they were informed not by the VA but by the American Legion that the department's Office of Connected Care has decided to begin a strategic assessment of the Atlas program, which has paused delivery and planned clinical operations of the Emporia site. That was not communicated to me. It was, and incidentally, the pod is developed. It's been made and now sitting in a warehouse, unable to be used. That Atlas pod, again going back to suicide and mental health issues, is one of the ways that we can deliver those kind of care and meet those needs rapidly and in geographical locations in which it's a challenge. Something has happened. Your reaction suggests to me that you don't know that I didn't mean it this way it may sound, but you're unaware of this. I need your help in figuring out why this happened, and if it doesn't make sense, which it doesn't to me, why we wouldn't complete this process. You have my commitment to get to the bottom of it. In candor, I think I've been in close touch with the Legion as well. I've heard mixed, indications of mixed success with some of the Atlas pods. And we have been looking at it as a general matter. I was not aware of the decision on the Emporia pod, which you and I saw together. And I regret both that it happened, and I also regret that it wasn't me who told you. So let me get to the bottom of it. And I don't know whether this is an isolated instance or whether this is circumstances that are occurring across the country in other of my colleagues' states. My last question for this round, at least, Mr. Secretary, your written statement notes that veterans made over 33 million visits to community care and over 78 million visits to VHA facilities last year. Community care represents then about a third of the total visits. Looking at FY21 appropriation levels, roughly $18 billion is appropriated for community care and $76 billion for VA medical care. These are not apples to apples, I understand.
Yes.
But it would suggest that there's the cost of community care is less than the cost of care within the VHA. Tell me what I need to know about that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I want to say a series of things. One, I took to heart what you said. The last time I appeared before you, you were unimpressed with the speed with which we responded to one of your questions, one of your letters. So I got this letter on November 12th, and I said, if this is not signed out by the time I appear up there,
before you leave,
somebody's going to get chewed up.
Apologizing to you. Now stop.
So that's one. Two, I understand the kind of the algebra that you're doing there, and on a certain level, I'd say community care does provide us absolutely important opportunities and does so very competitively. For example, the average urgent care appointment in the community, $164. when you compare that to potential cost of an emergency room visit or potential elapsed time before you can get to see a primary care physician, even if we beat the 20-day target, that's an absolutely great deal. So if part of your question is community care a good deal for us? It is. Community care is also the law of the land, and we live by the law of the land. And the suggestion that anybody who works for me is willingly breaking the law is something I take really seriously. And so every one of those newspaper stories that have appeared, I've been on the top of. Every one of the television ads, which make these assertions, we get to the bottom of. We'll continue to do it, but it's absolutely a critical tool for us. Last point is, because we invest so heavily in education, training, research, and the coordination of care, it's really incumbent on us, if we're going to continue to make best use of care in the community, that we get much better at coordinating that care. Part of that is the electronic health record, but part of that is our partners in the community and the third-party administrator getting more serious about running a professional network. And we're better now paying our bills on time. They got to be better at providing quality care on time, the way they promise, and at a cost that's competitive. And so that's what I'd say to that. But again, A, it's the law. B, it's really good for our vets. And C, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what I think. It matters what the vet chooses.
Okay, thank you. So I went over, Moran went over, we both apologized. Let's try to keep it as close to 5 as we can. I just did for you. Senator Hassan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Ranking Member, for this hearing, and Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here today. And it was good to see you yesterday. And just to the point of needing more personnel trained up fast, I hope that the bill that the President signed into law yesterday, that Senator Braun and I did, will really get the VA much more proactive in recruiting healthcare workers from active duty members who are in their last year of service, who are already trained up by the United States military. Look, I want to talk a little bit about what's going on in New Hampshire. Obviously, support for our veterans is important in all of our states. In my state of New Hampshire, veterans make up more than 10% of our adult population, and the VA projects that the number of VA enrollees in New Hampshire will grow in the coming years. Yeah. In previous testimony, you noted the need to modernize VA healthcare facilities. It's especially true in underserved areas like New Hampshire, one of the only states that lacks a full-service VA hospital. As a VA New Hampshire task force found in 2018, we need to improve specialty care services and facilities, establish an ambulatory surgical center, build a community living center, and improve parking to access these facilities. So, Mr. Secretary, I understand that the VA has internal decision-making processes, and you can't get out ahead of that in terms of making final decisions. But will you commit to working with my office on finding a path forward for these kinds of critical projects at VA facilities in New Hampshire? Yeah, I will. And one, it was really good to see you yesterday too. I have to say, I much prefer visiting the White House rather than working there. And it was also nice to be there for signing into law of those bills, including yours, which is going to make a big difference for us. So that's one. Two, I make that commitment to you. Okay. Our teams have been working together on this, as we discussed yesterday. Importantly, if Build Back Better is enacted, there is $4.5 billion extra dollars for infrastructure there. Right. That will be managed through our internal processes, as you've just talked about. I'm also mindful of the fact that in the context of that, the New Hampshire projects will be obviously considered. There are 2 projects currently in early stages of planning, and both in the area you talked about, ambulatory surgery and a parking garage. Analysis necessary to develop those projects is underway. The remaining 2 active minor construction projects are further ahead. That's one's at the Manchester VAMC. Yep. It's currently developing a minor construction project for a dedicated women's health clinic. Right.
And this project is moving forward toward an early FY23 construction contract award. Additionally, a specialty care building is currently in design and is scheduled to be completed in the third quarter of 2022 and considered then in 2023 construction funding. So we'll stay on top of that. We'll keep an open door with you on that, as we do with everybody here, of course. But it will be pursuant to our internal processes. But the bottom line is we work with you. My commitment on this is as rock solid as anything else on transparency and openness.
I appreciate that. And for our veterans who don't have a full-service VA hospital in their state, this is just, really, really critical. Let me turn to another issue that I hear a lot about from New Hampshire veterans, and particularly New Hampshire National Guardsmen and reservists, who swear to defend the Constitution and this country just like their active duty counterparts, and deserve the same respect and recognition. So I introduced bipartisan legislation with Senator Shaheen, Kramer, and Hoeven to reform the Veterans Cemetery Grants Program to ensure that all members of reserve components and the National Guard are eligible to be buried in state veteran cemeteries. Veterans in my state strongly support this bill, as do national veteran service organizations. The last time you testified before this committee, you committed to working with my office on this legislation, and we've had good conversations. We've worked extensively with the VA, and in particular, the National Cemetery Administration, and I believe we've found a path forward. So just given the National Cemetery Administration's support for this legislation, will you commit to implementing it quickly once Congress is able to pass it into law?
Yeah, I mean, you raised this issue with me. I took it for action. Matt Quinn, who's the second best Montanan I know, took this on board, and he's worked it through. And so I think we're in a position we've enunciated our support for the provision, and we'll make sure it gets done.
Okay, thank you. And last thing, just because I'm just about out of time, I had questions on toxic exposure legislation, the TEAM Act that Senator Tillis and I have introduced, and we'll follow up on the record. I will just suggest that one of the provisions in there was just is that the VA could develop a questionnaire that would help them identify veterans who've been exposed as part of the primary care interaction. I think it could be something that the VA could implement without us necessarily passing it into law, and I think it would be a very important first step in really identifying those veterans who've been exposed, and just integrating that into the quality care that you all are striving to provide.
The straightforward question, I think it does sound like something we could do, but I'll get you an answer on that.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you,
Thanks,
Mr. Chair.
Senator Hassan. Senator Tillis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Ranking Member, and Senator Hassan, thank you for bringing up the TEAM Act, and look forward to us continuing to work on it. I wanted to thank you for reaching out to me and talking through the future governance structure and the management structure for the VA. I don't know if the other members have seen what I believe you announced formally today. Yeah. The thing that I like most about it is that we're really creating what I would consider to be a classic program office for managing the EHRM project, and I look forward to onboarding the person who's going to lead that effort. Sounds like great experience from the DOD. Yeah. I also hope that we can take what was in place on an org chart that's not yet functional, and that's that joint team with DOD. Yes. Because I do think that integration is going to be very important. A lot to learn from there. So thank you for sharing that information with me. I did want to quickly, you touched on veteran suicide in your opening comments, and I've introduced a bill called Expanding the Families of Veterans Access to Mental Health Services Act. It's a bill that I've introduced on my side. We have a companion bill in the House. I don't know if the department has taken a position there, but it's to recognize that in the aftermath of a veteran suicide, you've got a family that could be in crisis, and we believe that having that available to spouses and family members are very important. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, very much so.
Thank you.
I'll take a look at the bill. I mean, among others, the Assistance Program for Survivors, TAPS, does great post-vention work. That's something we're spending a lot of time on through our Office of Mental Health and Suicide Prevention. And so I think it's what I hear from you about the bill sounds like it's right out the same vector that we're operating.
Yeah, it'd be really helpful as we move forward, because we'd like, if we have concurrence from the department, maybe an expedient way to get that done.
Good.
I do have a question about the integrated veteran care. I think you all introduced this concept back in October, and I have to say that when we're talking about trying to get timely access to health care, either in a VA facility or in community care, that we feel like we've hit some stumps. I know the goal, or some roadblocks. I know the goal is to provide a seamless sort of access to services, and also working closely with the VSOs, but maybe not for the purposes of this hearing. I've got about 2.5 minutes left, but I'd really like to get a better understanding of how that's going to compress things, because it may just be the transition, but we are hearing that it may be causing some delays to get community care or a timely appointment.
Yeah. Well, the short answer is, in interest of time, we'll stay close to you on this. Our whole goal is to reduce the kind of the overhead around the decision makers. Right now, before we began to bring these two offices together, Office of Community Care and then the Office of Care in the system, I forget what it's called precisely, we learned from veterans that it created a lot of confusion. It probably added to some of the time, but look, at the end of the day, we own the time. We own the clock. We got to get shorter on this as a general matter. I think it stands to reason that having one stop where the vet doesn't have to make a choice which door he enters. He just goes in there and works through his particular access question, and then ends up where he wants to end up in the community or in the direct care system, is the better way to do this. I think it's unusual for us to start bringing down overhead and reducing people working on an issue. The whole goal here is to make it a more streamlined process.
You also mentioned that your priority is on timely access to health care and timely access to VA benefits. I think we've seen, I'm always looking for silver linings in the COVID crisis. I think we saw that with telehealth. And
yes.
I'm glad to hear that we're going to institutionalize some of those things and move on. Of course, if any of the things you're doing on the health side require authority, we need to know that, whether or not it's within your authority. But I'm also interested in whether or not you can apply the same things that we did on the healthcare side to the benefits side. I mean, are you looking at how using a different outreach, using tele-outreach, for example, what could we do to expedite access to VA benefits?
Yeah, so one perfect example of that, there's surely more for us to learn. Some of the hiring authorities that have been so useful for VHA will be also helpful to VBA, the Benefits Administration. But tele-appeals have been extraordinarily effective at the Board of Veteran Appeals. Now, we're still pretty backlogged there. But to her great good credit, the chairman at the Board of Veterans Appeals has gotten us in a position where we are doing many more tele-appeals, meaning that it saves the vet a trip, it saves the judge, a trip, and we're looking for additional ways to solidify that into practice. On the regular benefits operation, I'll be happy to come back to you with some of our thoughts on that as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I know you are a can-do guy, and I really appreciate the fact that you took the time after your confirmation hearing to follow up with me regarding getting the ball rolling on a very long delayed clinic on Oahu,
Yes.
soon to be named the Akaka Clinic. And we're actually going to be doing groundbreaking later this month.
I'm really happy to hear that.
So I really thank you for that, because that's the kind of clinic that will provide community-based care for our veterans. And you may or may not know that Tripler, which is where part of their care occurs, there's no parking, all kinds of issues there. So at that time when we talked, we had discussed making changes to the leasing
Yes.
process to help other states avoid the kind of delays that the Aloha Project, which is the Akaka Clinic, faced. Can you provide an update on any changes that have been made?
Yeah, importantly, in the House-passed version of Build Back Better, there's a fix to the Congressional Budget Office procedure on scoring leases. So this will be, I think, this will be not only important for Hawaii and for other very high cost localities, but frankly for every member on the committee, given the slowness that we've had in fulfilling leases because of what I would argue is antiquated way we score them for budget purposes. So this would be another benefit of enactment of the BBB if we can get that done.
Yet another reason to pass BBB. Oh, hi, Joe. I'm kidding. Anyway.
You were.
Of course not. You named, you cited in your testimony the 10 key challenge areas, and it covers the gamut from suicide prevention, homelessness, et cetera. So as you are completing a year or so of your tenure, do you have any ongoing frustration with regard to meeting the challenges of these programmatic areas that you cited? Is there something overriding that we can help you with?
I think there's two things. I'm very focused on the fact that we've asked the workforce to do a lot in a relatively short time, and they've done it under extraordinarily demanding situation and pressures. And so that means I think it's time for us, that and the very tight healthcare labor market means that I think it's time for us to take a step back to look at hiring authorities, training authorities, and I've committed to all of you on this committee that we get back to you early in the new year with a step back look at each of those things. That is our biggest challenge, frankly, is managing this workforce of 420,000 people and doing it in a way that as the market around them gets tighter and therefore wages get much more competitive, how do we stay competitive there? Fact is, we're pretty sticky with our healthcare professionals in particular. Turnover in our system is somewhere around 9% annually. It's a little less than that, the 2 years of the pandemic, meaning that people are staying longer, people coming out of retirement to work in the context of the pandemic. So we have to figure out how we can amplify that so that we can keep these people on board.
I think we had already made some changes to help with filling some vacancies because the VA had a pretty convoluted kind of a lengthy process. So if there are other things that we ought to do to enable you to recruit and keep your staff, that would be good because they are providing the kind of direct services to our veterans. Just about every VA secretary that I've worked with, and it's been quite a number, have put homelessness as a major priority, and I'm wondering whether you're doing something different to meet to reduce the number of homeless veterans that we have. Because at one point, there was an effort to work with mayors, for example, all across the country, and the mayor of the city and county of Honolulu was engaged. I mean, that's really getting down to it. But yet we have homeless veterans. So
sure
are
do.
you doing something different, unique, something to make a difference?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. We've prioritized in the first instance here closing what was called Veterans Row in Los Angeles, which is I thought a shameful scenario where between 40 and 50 of our vets every night were living homeless just outside of our facility in West LA. That facility, everybody who was on that facility is now in either transitional or sustainable housing. We also have a goal now where we're about 400 people into a 500-person goal of getting 500 veterans between basically October 10th and the end of the year in LA County into housing for the holidays. We're at about 400. We set the goal of 500. We're going to get to and through that 500. But we've also made a series of changes under the broad rubric of what we call housing first, which is the most important thing is to get a vet into a house and then to take care of all the issues that led to homelessness in the first instance, joblessness, association with the justice system, substance use disorder, mental health challenges. We've made some challenges there as well. For example, under some of our programming, we've increased the amount of the subsidy that can be dedicated to rental assistance. We've extended the period during which somebody can stay in emergency housing. All of this is made possible by the fact that under the American Rescue Plan and the CARES Act, you all have made unprecedented amount of assistance available for homelessness programming, which brings me to the last point. We have the resources from you all. We have established procedures that are proven to get vets into houses and keep them there. All that's missing now is will and execution, and we're going to bring that part of it. And our goal is to get the more than 40,000 homeless veterans into houses.
Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Hirono. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Secretary, thank you
Nice to see
for
you,
your
Senator.
time. It's good to see you. Let's talk about the VBA backlog.
Sure.
As you know, we hear a lot about the backlog.
I bet you do.
We hear a lot about wait times, and I do want to touch base with you on those. So talk to me about where you are, because right now my understanding is there's about 250,000
Yes.
that are on so what is your timeline for bringing that up?
Yeah. So I'll just give you a quick snapshot of where we've been and where
That's
we're going.
great.
So when we came in, we were at about 220,000 cases in the backlog. That number had tripled in the context of the pandemic. Importantly, because early in the pandemic, we stopped doing, for example, some
Right.
exams because of concerns about safety for the veteran. So that led to a big spike up. We got that down to about 170,000. That bumped up again when Blue Water Navy cases last August came along. We worked that down to about 190,000. It then bumped back up to this roughly 250, 260,000 case mark in October, when the three presumptives in the last year's NDAA that you all were so critical in getting us access to, as those came due. So we're at about 260,000. Our plan is through the use of funding made available in the American Rescue Plan, through the hiring of 2,000 additional claims adjudicators, and through ideally increased automation of these processes, which I don't have news on yet, but I hope we will.
Right. If I can jump in right there.
Yeah.
I think that having staff willing, VA staff willing to do that training and use
Yes.
that technology is going to be crucial
Yes.
to this. Because if not, we're going to have the same problems we've had with the EHRs.
Yeah.
And I think we want to be able to move past
I'm with you.
this. Okay.
Let me complete the thought, just so I
Okay.
don't
Great.
so I don't miss answering your question. So under that process, which right now includes mandatory overtime, for example, by April 2024, we'll have under 100,000 cases in the
Okay.
backlog. The last point is just to your point about the team. We're hiring 2,000 people right now. We've already hired 900. Some portion of them, I don't have the exact number at the moment, are in training at the moment. We think we'll have those, if provided we get the funding through a regular appropriations bill. We'll have those people in chairs, those 2,000 in chairs, trained at the end of the spring.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. And let me ask you about using community care, because what we are hearing, our caseworkers hear from veterans who call and complain about wait times. And then they'll say, well, the option of community care wasn't offered to them on the front end. So I think this also speaks to training. So why is that not being offered at the outset? Because that is a way to get that veteran to care more quickly.
Definitely.
And I think this is a missed opportunity. So the VA staff members need to be able to immediately offer that to them to speed this process up. And the other part of that is that it looks like the way wait times are calculated, whether you're using the date that it's requested or, the patient indicated date.
Right.
So that we get a truer picture of what that wait time really is.
Yeah. So two questions, which is, let me work back.
Okay.
This question on calculation of the wait time, I think it's I'm only now getting smart on this. I think we've been reporting it to you. I'm under the impression that we've been reporting it to you all from the point that the referral is made.
Right.
Which is as you
And
say, the
not
patient
request-
indicated. No, let me make sure that I understand it on my
All
end.
right.
In any case, I guess what I'm trying to do is to agree with you that if we need to rectify our reporting through public documents, we'll make sure we do. I think that what I understand from our team and from their interactions with you all and your staffs, that we've been reporting it to you pretty straightforwardly on a regular basis now for many months, in fact, years. But let me get to the bottom of that and make sure that we're on the same page on that. On whether whether veterans are being made aware of their options. I guess what I'd ask, Senator, is if there is something like that where one of your veterans finds that he or she has not been made aware of what their options are, please let us know. Our person who runs that office is up here on a monthly basis with your all staff, going through every kind of comma, period, and semicolon of our reporting on this. I'm not saying that the reporting is perfect, but I'm saying that we're up here pretty regularly to try to get to the bottom of these
We
cases.
will communicate with you further on that because
Good.
we have veterans on our staff
Yep.
who work with veterans. And it
Great.
seems like this is a far too common occurrence, and we'd like to help solve that problem.
Good.
Thank you.
We'd
Thank you,
like to do
Mr.
it too.
Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Blackburn. Senator Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Secretary, and I see you. Thank you
Nice to
for
see you.
your exemplary service in two administrations. A few months ago, you were in this committee about the electronic health record
Yes.
implementation. As you remember, your strategic review of that program, the OIG's report, new patient scheduling system needs improvement as VA expands
Yes.
its implementation. You remember all that? It was designed by Cerner.
I do.
Part of the broader EHR. It's currently at the facility in Columbus, and the report outlines some pretty big issues that slow timely care for veterans. The scheduling system left some clinics and appointment types, their term, out and lacked the tools to measure wait times, another serious area of concern. The new EHR will come to Columbus as soon as March 4 months
right.
from now.
Right.
My office talks to their staff regularly, and we'll follow up with them as prepare for the new system. I mean, you know how hard these VA workers are working everywhere in our states. And we've got to set them up for success with this new EHR. I'm not sure we're doing that. I'd like to ask your health record team to brief you and your health record team to brief me and my staff soon so we can understand
Absolutely.
how the concerns raised will affect those workers in that
Absolutely.
implementation.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. On Veterans Day, I held a roundtable. I typically don't do big town halls. I do roundtables because it reminds me of Lincoln. Lincoln used to say, go out and get your public opinion baths, and it's how you really learn from people. And I did, it was a Zoom roundtable in this case, but a vet named Daniel shared a story and outlined his health complications. He said, and it was painful to watch. He's wheelchair bound. He was very healthy when he'd entered the service. He was exposed to burn pits. He has immense pain, oxygen full time from a rare lung disease. He shared that story. Then he said he and his wife had been denied the higher tier for the Caregivers program. What do you say to somebody like Daniel and his wife who puts her whole heart into caregiving? Other veterans like that who've been denied the expanded caregivers benefits or put into a lower tier. What do you say to them?
Well, look, it's obviously heartbreaking. 1, 2. I've been talking to many of you all about the Caregivers program, and my sense is that you didn't pass the Caregiver program so that 80% of applicants would be denied. And so I've given guidance to our team that that's got to change. So we're looking at regulation to figure out how we do that. And so what I would say to Daniel is I would say thank you, and I'd say the same to his wife. And I'd also say that we are looking, by virtue of our toxic exposure work, at rare respiratory cancers and rare lung diseases for our next round of presumptives. And then on the caregiver program, you know, I can't say it better than some of your colleagues have said it, which is you didn't pass that program so that 80% of people would be denied.
And my understanding from Anna and my staff, who's really knowledgeable about this, that an estimated 6,700 legacy caregiver participants will be discharged from the program due to the new criteria. Does VA have the authority to make the necessary changes that they can remain in the program, or do we need to act?
So let's take a step back maybe on three things about the caregiver program, just real quick. On the legacy program, that expired basically at the end of last September, on October 1, because we're now expanding into the new program. So we're going back and we're looking at everybody who was eligible under the legacy program. There'll be 19,000 people. That's 19,000 people. We've communicated with about 2,000 of those people and begun the reassessments of their cases. I've seen the same estimation, which is that 6,700 people may not qualify for the new program. That's an estimation. We don't have hard data on that yet. In many ways, I hope that some of those people who don't qualify because they no longer need it, which would be a good news story, right?
But you don't know that for sure.
I don't.
Yeah.
But where we're then headed is, so that's what we're doing. We're working through those cases. In any case, if somebody's found to no longer qualify for the legacy program, the soonest their participation in the program, the enhanced program, would end would be 90 days after October 1st, 2022. Okay? So more than a year from today. If they're found today to no longer qualify for the legacy program, it would be another year plus before the support of the program would end. So that's a legacy program. Then the question is, are we ready for the new program? So we've hired about 1,900 people. We're going to hire another 400 people for that program. We will be focused on consistency of decision-making for participation and authorization into the program. And we'll be focused on making sure that the program is as Congress intended. And 8 in 10 people being denied is not as you intended, right? But then brings me third to this question, which is related to caregivers and is related to this question of the Beaudet case, where several people who have been denied access have asked for the right and been granted it under an initial ruling to appeal that case in our Board of Veterans Appeals. We are contacting everybody who's been denied and making sure they know of their right to appeal. We are not seeking an injunction on that ruling. We will carry out those appeals, but we are also going to appeal the ruling itself to a higher court, or at least we've petitioned the Solicitor General to allow us to appeal. I hope to hear from them soon about that, but I want to level with you that on this question of the Beaudet ruling, which will be meaningful to you and your team and to the caregivers, we will appeal that decision. Bottom line, though, is we're better positioned to carry out the expanded program. We're staffed up. We'll carry it out consistently and consistent with your intent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick comment. You had, I appreciate your question about claims processing. I want to follow up on that. And we also, I will want to send you a letter on a question about the 90-10 loophole in the American Rescue Plan and what we're doing to prevent for-profit colleges from predatory behavior.
I'd be happy.
I will
I'd look
put
forward to that
in writing.
conversation.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Troubleville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the early Christmas present. This new desk you gave me, it took you 11 months, but it's good. I'm able to sit up at your level now.
That's very quick for the Senate to act, just wanted you to know.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Good to
Nice
see you.
Good to see
Thanks
you,
for your
Coach.
hard work.
Thank you.
Do you have a count, or who would we get a number from of how many vets that we've lost to COVID this past year?
I could get you that number. I don't have it at my fingertips. I wish I did. But
Yeah,
I don't.
I
would be happy to
wouldn't
get it
think
to
you would.
Yep.
I think all of us like to know,
Yep. Yep.
of this year, of how many we've lost. I'm going to go back to my HBOT question.
Yep.
Hyperbaric.
Yep.
I had success with them.
Yep.
Being a lowly football coach, but we saw success using that with concussions
Yep.
over the years. Why can we not get some kind of feedback from some people that have used it on their own, paying for it themselves?
Yeah.
Does it actually help? We're pumping drugs into these veterans every day, and we need to find some way to slow the suicide rate down.
Yeah. So thanks very much. I'd say a couple things about this. One is we're under requirements because of the statute to make sure that we're going through a series of processes. We're implementing those processes. We submitted a series of reports to you guys over the course of the last couple of months, and I think just yesterday or earlier this week, or maybe it was last week, sat down with your team and some of the other staff members about this question about what we're encountering at the moment, which is certain ethical limits on how we assess impact on individuals in the context not of a pilot, but in the context of actual treatment. And so I don't know the ins and outs of it, Coach, but what I gather is our ethics team and then our team has come up and briefed your team about their concerns about precisely your question, which is how do we go and do some kind of valid testing while still maintaining fidelity to these ethical standards. So the bottom line is, and answer your question is, we're trying to work through these ethical limitations and we're in close touch with your team about it.
Yeah, thank you. You familiar with Operation Deep Dive, carried out by the University of Alabama, about looking into studies of veterans that have committed suicide? Are you familiar with that?
I don't think I am.
I think we need to find some way. To me, suicide is, of course, it's very important to all of us.
Yes.
And we're losing 17, 20 a day.
Yes.
And it's not getting any better. We need to find some way of, after the fact, of following up. What happened at the VA?
Yeah.
What were they on? We need to get some kind of structure, of some kind of graph of how we get to the bottom of why. And I think that's where we all want to get to.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not getting any better.
Yeah.
I've lost friends, and you think they're getting better.
Yeah.
And they go to the VA, but something happens to them.
Yeah.
And we got to get to the bottom of that. But there's a group, like I said, University of Alabama does Operation Deep Dive. They look into why, what happened, put all the information together. I wish we would kind of do that from the VA ourselves.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting on some other group to do it.
Yeah, so we were just talking about this with Senator Tillis as well. He's got a provision. He's got a bill on this. We do some work we call postvention, rather than pre-intervention, postvention, to make sure that we're working with families and understanding as best we can. I have an answer to your earlier question too, but the one thing I'd add here, Coach, is importantly, we did see improvements in 2018 to 2019, which is our most recently released numbers. And it's all backward looking because of the way we aggregate the data. But we are making progress. By no means enough progress, but we are making progress. And we do believe that we know the steps that we need to take to continue that progress. It begins with the assistance that and the resources that you all are making available to us, but I'd be more than happy to dig into Operation Deep Dive at University of Alabama.
Well, they're telling me that they can't get information from the VA of whether this person that committed suicide was actually connected with the VA. I mean, if we could get somebody in contact with us to where we can connect, all they're looking is for just as much information as possible. And again, I think it'd be beneficial.
I'll follow up with your team and we'll get you, we'll get a name of somebody. We'll make sure that our Office of Mental Health and Suicide Prevention is in touch with them.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Senator Trevor.
Number of veterans who have died from COVID in the last year, 16, this is as of November 29th, the last time we reported it to the committee, 16,543.
Senator Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary, good to see you again.
Nice to see you, Senator.
Thanks for being here. As you well know, this summer, the VA completed its strategic review of the Electronic Health Record Modernization Program, and Deputy Secretary Remy made a virtual visit to Mann Grandstaff VA Medical Center in Spokane last month in November. I appreciate the senior leadership's continued engagement on this issue, but we really do need to see corrective actions to put this important program back on track and to get it right for veterans' families and staff who are counting on it. For Spokane VA Medical Center and its clinics, what are VA's next steps for remedying the existing issues?
Yeah, so the next steps are that we are enhanced. I last talked to Donald about this last night, Donald Remy. We're pressing on Cerner to enhance the presence on the ground in Spokane so that people can get more timely reaction.
What do you mean pressing them, saying you'd like them to or telling them they have to?
Yeah, we're telling them that they have to. And Donald reported to me last night he was in touch with Rob Fisher, who's the medical center director there in Spokane. And what Rob said to him is that as of last night, the kind of presence that Cerner was manifesting was not what he had been anticipating. And so Donald was going to tell Cerner today that's not good enough.
When do you expect to see that?
I don't know the answer to that question because he had that discussion today, but I'll get you the answer. I haven't talked to him since he had the discussion.
Any other steps that you're taking?
Well, we're continuing to, we have regular engagement through the Office of Electronic Health Record Modernization with the team in Spokane so that we as an institution are making sure that we're taking whatever corrective action we need to take as well. And then we've obviously restructured the management and governance of the implementation of the project going forward.
Okay. Well, in your testimony, you mentioned that the VA plans to continue deployments to gain more experience while increasing future site readiness. That's a quote. Almost 2 years ago, I cautioned the previous administration against deploying this new EHR until infrastructure and staffing issues were addressed. I don't want to see the new EHR deployed at other sites in Washington State until it's fixed and it's ready to go. So to avoid any confusion for future sites, what indicators is the VA looking for to know when a site is ready and that the deployment won't disrupt a veterans care staff productivity or the morale that we've seen?
Yeah, it's a fair question, and maybe maybe the way to answer this, Senator, is that in as much as Walla Walla would be the next site in Washington, why don't we come to you with our dashboard on what we intend to measure as it relates to Walla Walla, and then you can see our decision making on that.
Are you at this time moving forward on any other sites in Washington State?
What we've indicated is that as soon as March, we'll go to Columbus, and then shortly after that to Walla Walla.
Okay, and you will bring to me what your indicators are
Yep.
before you proceed on that?
Yep.
Okay, I expect to see that, all right. You were asked by Caregivers by Senator Brown, you know this
Yep.
is a passion of mine too, and
Yeah, and we have the program because of you.
Well, as you know, the previous administration finalized a rule for the Caregivers program that restricted the eligibility criteria for veterans I heard your answer to Senator Brown. I know what you're doing about those that have been denied, but as he stated, 88% of the applications were denied. So my question to you is a little different, is how is the VA going to fix that unnecessarily restrictive eligibility criteria so that we don't continue to see these denials?
Yeah, there's I think there's two big movers in the decision. One is a statutory provision, which says the condition the veteran suffers has to have been incurred in the line of duty. Our proxy for that is a 70% disability rating. And we can't get around that. That's statutory, right? We may, after looking at this, come back to you and say, hey, can we look at this statutory language? As I've discussed with several of you, the other mover is a determination of the percentage of activities of daily living that a veteran has to manifest problems with to qualify, having gotten over that first hurdle of the 70% disability. We do have some regulatory flexibility on that question of the percentage of activities of daily living that would be required once over that 70% hump. That's what we're looking at now.
So you are looking at changing some of that criteria to make it less
We are.
restrictive. Okay. All right. And what's your timeline on that?
ASAP.
Okay. All right.
We may have to do it through rulemaking. We may be able to do it through clarification. That's a question really for general counsel, but I'm working very closely with Caregiver office, with general counsel, to make sure that we do whatever we can as quickly as we can, and surely in anticipation of the October 1 date.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Senator Murray, Senator Rounds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary McDonough, it's good to see you, and I think this is a great opportunity to sit down and to talk about what's going on in the VA and to learn from you, from your perspective, what's happening. I'd like to talk about specifically the implementation of the Mission Act.
Yes.
And about kind of what's going on with regard to referrals outside of the VA facilities themselves.
Yes.
I think the clarification that you could provide on the referral coordination initiative, particularly how this initiative affects veterans' access to the community care. I think that's the area that I really want to focus on. You may have seen the results of the investigation conducted by USA Today that was released earlier this month. This report points out examples of VA actively denying access to community care.
Yeah.
I presume you're familiar with the article.
I am, and we dug very deeply into each of the instances, and obviously can't talk about a lot of that. In fact, I'm not even privy to myself to each of those cases, but our team was up here yesterday talking about this. We dig into each of those cases to make sure that we understand what happened.
Well, I think we've got a real problem, and I think it goes back down to dollars and cents. I have concerns that these examples are not isolated, and that they could be the result of the implementation of the RCI in a way that diminishes veterans' choice.
Yeah, I just don't agree with it. So.
Well, let me share with you the reason why I'm concerned.
Yeah.
When a VA primary care provider refers a veteran to community care because they believe it's in the veteran's best medical interest, does the referral coordination team have the power to override that decision?
No, and in fact, it's not even the primary care provider's decision. It's the veteran's decision. And so our job is to make sure that the veteran is aware of his options and that we move with dispatch to execute his options, and that it is, in fact, best medical interest that determines that question.
I think this may be where the problem is, because I think if the veteran actually makes the decision himself, that's one of the reasons why I challenged the Mission Act in the first place, was I didn't read the law that way. And I'm not sure that a lot of the folks that are implementing it read it that way either. And I'll just give you an example. The department's guidebook on the Referral Coordination Initiative features a call script, a framework that members of the referral coordination team can use when speaking to a veteran who is eligible for community care. The call script framework recommends RCT members remind these veterans, and I quote, "You should know by choosing the VA, we can better coordinate your overall care because we have the results of any services or tests in your health record." Just seems to me that I'm not sure it's appropriate for the RCT members to be suggesting to, that the VA might be a better option for a veteran, even after a veteran's primary care physician has determined community care is in the best medical interest. And I don't think that's the way it was sold to a lot of folks here. And I'm not sure that's the way that you would see it either.
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't. I mean, in effect, well, let me put it this way. GAO released a study last month wherein they found that care in the community is more difficult to coordinate. It's more difficult to get lab results. It's more difficult to get test results, and therefore more difficult at the end of the day to coordinate that care for that veteran. That's not my finding. That's not the Referral Coordination Initiative's finding. That's the GAO's finding.
But either
at the end of the day, then.
But either it's the veteran's choice or somebody else is making the final decision. And see, I really do think it should be the veteran's choice.
It is the veteran's choice. That's what the law says.
And yet, I think a lot of veterans feel that that's not the way it is. And in fact, within this article, there's one item that really was, I think, pointing to the fact and the concern that I think Senator Blackburn had tried to address a little bit.
Yeah.
And what I really feel strongly about. The part of the article says Dr. Kathleen Kim, who is the San Diego VA Chief of Staff, said physicians sometimes incorrectly try to relocate patients for treatments her hospital can offer, which would be internal, and administrators are regularly educating them to help keep veterans at the VA. And then the direct quote, "Because of the nature of the Mission Act, the VA is sending a lot of care in the community, and frankly, we're worried that we're not going to be able to pay the bills," end of quote. See, Mr. Secretary, I really think there's more of a driver here with regards to dollars and cents than what there is to making sure that the primary responsibility is to get that veteran the care that they want. And I'd really like to explore this a bit more, and my time has expired, but I think we've got a serious problem here that's not going to go away.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I'm just looking at the month-by-month obligations for care in the community. So
going up?
September, $2 billion, $67,412,193. So we had basically 4 months above $2 billion a month. That's significant investment in the community. At the same time, this is by definition outpatient care, correct? Satisfaction ratings for outpatient care, north of 90%. That doesn't mean we're at 100. And I didn't deal a lot in the 90 percentile myself, but 90 percentile is good. I'm like a 70 percentile guy. But that's not to say that there aren't problems. There are. It's a big system. And when I find a problem, I snuff it out. But to suggest that by design we're breaking the law is an overstatement. That's what the article suggests. We took it very seriously, including with the team in San Diego, to get to the bottom of it, as you, I think, would expect us to do. What I believe is that we are giving best available care to our veterans, including historically high levels of care in the community. I think that ultimately reflects the veteran's interest. I want us to compete for access to that veteran.
And I like the idea of competing, but I want it to be on a field that says we can provide equal or better care, and the veteran makes the decision.
And we do, and that's what the GAO concluded.
And I appreciate your thoughts on it, and I'd like to pursue it further.
I look forward to that very much.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Senator
Thank you, Mr.
Rao.
Chairman.
Senator Blumenthal.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your service, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you very much.
And your excellent work for the administration. I want to talk a little bit about infrastructure. I hear you're planning a trip in 2022 to Connecticut. We will welcome you, and I will
Thank
be
you.
delighted to show you the West Haven
Thank you.
Hospital, which is in desperate need of rebuilding, as you and I have
Yes.
talked frequently,
Yes.
probably more often than you care to remember. But
Oh, I remember everyone.
this stuff is pretty serious to all of us
Yeah.
in the Congress and to the American people, and I know to you. I am frankly disappointed that the Build Back Better program doesn't have more money for VA healthcare infrastructure. The way I read the Build Back Better program, it has about $4.1 billion allocated to infrastructure-related expenditures in the VA, which is down from $18 billion, that's less than a quarter, which is a fraction of the $60 to $70 billion that the VA has estimated that it needs over a 10-year horizon. So everybody on this dais, on both sides, should be aware we are shortchanging our VA, in my opinion. That may not be the way you view it, but this is the literally bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
And you say in your testimony that you are reassessing the pre-pandemic market assessment because, quote, it may not have been expansive enough to identify emerging healthcare demands. In other words, it's bigger, not smaller.
Yeah.
I'm not a good numbers guy. I'm just a country lawyer from Connecticut. But what I take away from this assessment is in Connecticut, where we need a new hospital facility in at least 10 other places, and probably the majority of VA healthcare facilities, we have aging plant and we have great professionals performing yeoman first-class medical work. We do in Connecticut. Taking nothing away from the great people working in the VA healthcare. In fact, it's to their credit, they're able to provide the gold standard of medical care, even under these difficult circumstances. What are we going to do?
That's an excellent question. I mean, the first thing is I do think that the investments in the Build Back Better Act will be meaningful. Second is we do have, our average infrastructure our average hospital is, 59 years old. You have an example of this, but there's an example of a facility that's dated in everybody's state or an example of states like Alaska or New Hampshire where there's not full service hospital available. So that's definitely a major challenge. We will do three things. One is we're looking at what we call the Asset and Infrastructure Review Commission to take a kind of top to bottom look at our physical plant, what needs to be upgraded, what can we do without. The second thing we're doing is we have to get better at how we implement the projects that we do get funding for. Denver was an embarrassment. And so
I apologize for interrupting. I visited Aurora, and I'm very familiar with the cost overruns, the delays.
Yeah.
And I accept your point about doing it better.
Yeah.
But you can't, there's no free lunch here.
No, which brings me to the third point, which is we will need increased investment in infrastructure.
Right.
And so if it's not now, it's going to have to be soon. And we do have to, look, I want to underscore that we have to be good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. And so that is, we have to make better use of the money that we do get and then make better use of better decisions around non-recurring maintenance, modernization, and making hard decisions when something is no longer needed.
Well, I we'd love to explore this topic at greater length and greater depth, and it may be the topic for a further conversation or maybe a roundtable we can do, depending on what the chairman would like to do. But VA infrastructure, I think we're going to approach a crisis point. And I have run out of time, but there are two other areas that I will pursue in writing. One of them is, you were asked by Senator Brown what you would say to Daniel's caregiver. My question is, what would you say to Daniel about the burn pit exposure? What would you say to the other folks, Palomares and others who have, the Palomares veterans who have been exposed, whether it's to radiation or something else, about how we can cut through the time that it takes, as it did on Agent Orange, and the bureaucratic morass, and since it predates you, I can say the bureaucratic resistance to doing fairly by our veterans.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why we've submitted the Cost of War Act. I hope you'll support it, but it really is an urgent need.
I hear you. I couldn't agree more.
Thanks, Senator Blumenthal. Senator Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary. Good to see you.
You too, Senator.
We're looking forward to having you in Alaska here soon. We're gonna just
no sunlight.
What's that?
There's not going to be any sunlight.
It's cold right now in Alaska. It's cold. 20 below in Fairbanks, so it's getting cold. So although you're from
I'm from Minnesota,
right?
I get it,
so,
yeah.
As I remind Senator Klobuchar, you guys are from the land of 10,000 lakes. I think we have 4 million lakes, but I never brag about that in front of her. Anyways, it's cold though. You're tough. Let me follow on a couple topics that seem to be a bit of a theme here.
Yeah.
One is, on talking about in-house versus community care. One of the topics we've had with a number of the VA witnesses over the last couple months is the topic of VA-DOD integration, which you and I have talked about extensively. It's currently authorization in the NDAA that we're debating right now to do that, and we're trying to kind of reinforce that here in the Veterans Affairs Committee. I think your agency is fully supportive of my legislation that's dealing with that. Can you talk to those issues? And we just think it's a better way, efficiently, cost-effectively, training with our docs, and cross kind of pollination between our military and our VA members, and both active duty veterans, but also the doctors in both sides.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I'll start where you ended, which is what I keep hearing from our providers and from vets is that vets like getting their care with active duty, and active duty like getting their care with vets.
Yeah.
And so I start there. It seems like it would be a big satisfaction increase. But then I think there are kind of standard economies of scale, training opportunities, affinity of maintaining cultural competence for care for active duty and care for veterans. And, I think this is one of the benefits of the EHR itself, the electronic health record, which is that we're going to have clinicians in both systems using the same backbone. So their closer clinical practice can't help but, I think, improve outcomes for vets, which at the end of the day, those that I've assured you all that I'll make every decision based on whether it increases access for vets and whether it improves outcomes. And I think us making better use of shared infrastructure is an obvious step to take.
Good. Let me ask one issue that I want to make sure we're able to do when you're up in Alaska is reaching out to the provider community as well. And one of the things that unfortunately I'm starting to see, just being back home last weekend, is that particularly in a community like ours where the VA footprint is very limited, the reliance on our community providers is an imperative. And as the Mission Act is being rolled out, as we are undertaking the work with the local representatives from Tri-West, I'm hoping that we can make sure you are able to meet with a number of the community providers, and these are both community providers that are in the network or have not yet joined the network, or, and I'm starting to see more of this, and I don't know if it's happening around the country, but it's happening in Alaska, have decided no longer to serve veterans under the Mission Act. And I really want you to be able to meet with them to hear their concerns. Are you seeing this nationally? It's something I'm starting, and anecdotally, I'm seeing it back home. But what's your take on this right now in terms of providers?
Yeah.
They get worried. They worry about rates. They worry about timely payments.
Yeah.
And what we don't want to do in Alaska or anywhere else is drive them out of the system.
Yeah, I hear you. So one, I would look forward to an opportunity to see whatever providers you think make sense. And so I'd be happy to do that.
Great.
Two is we have gotten much better as a partner. And I think the best way we can be a good partner, aside from the issues I was just talking with Senator Rounds about, is being a timely payer.
Yeah, really important.
Yeah. And right now, on clean claims, we rival Medicare on payment times. Okay? So on payment time, we're beating industry standard on clean claims.
What is a clean claim versus a
I think
non-clean?
That's a fair question. I think it has to do with kind of the complexity of the number of referrals and so forth.
Okay.
But on the apple to that apple, we're beating industry standard. Third, we are not, and I'll take this for action, but I have not heard, I spend a lot of time on community care. I've not heard dissatisfaction with providers driving network vitality. Fourth, to be honest with you, want to, and I'm really excited about the fact that we got the Tri-West thing worked out for Alaska. It took some doing.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad we got there. I think we should be leaning on the third-party administrators now to help us get more vigorous about building those networks.
Okay.
Right. So that's how I think about it.
All right.
I'm ready to be rebutted on this idea that there's providers, not providers, walking from the system. I just have not heard it.
Okay, good. Well, I appreciate your openness on this. It's a important topic, I think, for all of us.
Definitely.
And I think it's going to be really a critical issue on the implementation of the Mission Act.
Definitely.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Senator Sullivan.
I'm sorry, Chairman. I just say one quick thing. What we are not seeing, by the way, is a lot of slack in the community system, meaning wait times in the community. Now, we're really digging into this by virtue of this requirement to come to you all with a report in June. We're trying to find out precisely what is the apple to the wait time in the direct care system to the wait time in the community. And the community system is really pressed. That pandemic really squeezed the community system. And so there's no slack. And a lot of times what we're seeing, that the apple to the apple, we're faster, right? And this, again, I think should be a third-party administrator role, which is, hey, let's keep these networks vibrant for the people, for the care that our vets need. I think this is particular, I saw this acutely in Montana and Kansas. I think that we got to be a better partner, pay on time. Most importantly, we need the third-party administrators to step up.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Manchin.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sir.
Secretary, good to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
I had to go down and get a little assistance to the medical and come back, and I lost my turn, but I'm glad you worked me back in.
You cut way in
Are
line.
you okay?
I'm good. I had a couple shots.
Okay.
Anyway, Secretary, you and I have talked a lot about the Clarksburg situation,
have.
how horrific, and I know that both the senator and the ranking member have heard me talk about this before. But you know, still the glaring thing that happened in our VA is that they were getting passing grades. They were, the Joint Commission which accredits the VA facilities were saying that everything was good, consistently passing, as you remember. And we found out the OIG report was completely different. Give me a little update on what you've been able to do to change that from the Joint Commission versus the OIG to see if they're in sync?
Well, so obviously we continue to be subject to that regular Joint Commission investigation, but we have also had obviously very aggressive IG participation on the ground in Clarksburg, including most recently, as you and I have discussed. And importantly, we're also have our Office of Accountability and Whistleblower Protection is taking a hard look at Clarksburg. So that's from the accountability and
Have you all
oversight
looked
side.
at some of the other VAs too? Was this inherently problematic throughout the VA system?
We you and I had talked at length about what are the lessons that we can apply from Clarksburg. Among the things we did after I went up there and visited with you, and then after the trial and everything, is VHA did a system-wide stand-down on patient safety and accountability. So the entire enterprise dedicated time expressly to these questions raised by virtue of the experience in Clarksburg. So what I can tell you now is that we've looked across the system. We don't see this as endemic to the system. I think this was a particular challenge with this nurse and some of the oversight of performance in Clarksburg. But we're continuing to stay on top of it, and we'll apply whatever lessons we need to there. Last point. We also continue to apply new blood to the system. And I just got an update on Clarksburg last night. We have, what I heard last night is that the contract teams that we have, including on the wards in question that you and I have discussed, report increased morale, improved performance, and improved outcomes.
Have we been able to do anything on, and I think we all talked about this, the people that would be under suspicion for allowing this type of egregious acts to happen, they retired. And they're getting full pensions, full benefits, full everything, I understand. Were we able to reach back at all, found any of them
Not yet.
negligent?
Not yet.
Can't do it. Are we looking into? Okay. The assets cost of maintaining and updating critical infrastructure, VA,
Yes.
a lot of money being
Yes.
talked about and how we're going to spend it. You have the Strategic Capital Investment Planning Program
Yes.
from 2010.
The SCIP. Yep.
SCIP, yep. And then you have the AIR, which is the Asset and Infrastructure Review.
Yes.
Are those two going to conflict with each other? Are they overlapping, or is one slow, one down?
Yeah. So they're completely different. So the Asset Infrastructure Review Commission was enacted by statute by you all. I've been saying, and I think our teams have talked, I've urged you all and your teams to look closely at what we call the market assessments. There's been market assessments going on since 2019 in 96 markets around the country, where we're making some assessments about what are the care needs today and what will the care needs be for veterans in the future. Right. And we'll make then some recommendations. We'll give those to the AIR Commission itself, which is an independent commission. The president appoints some members of that commission. Senator Schumer, Senator McConnell, Mr. McCarthy, and Speaker Pelosi make some recommendations to that commission. Mm-hmm. Right now we have 7 commissioners ready to go. 2 are still not done. So we don't even have a commission yet, and they still have to come before you to be confirmed. So you'll be able to ask them some of these questions. So that is an aspirational look at our entire footprint, what's going to be needed, what therefore is not needed over the next 2.5 decades. The SCIP process is the process through which we make decisions based on the resources we get from you all on a year-to-year basis. And then where do we allocate those resources? So the SCIP process should surely inform what we're thinking about on AIR over time, and then AIR informs SCIP over time. But the SCIP is a much more nuts and bolts, dollars and cents. AIR Commission, much more aspirational. And by the way, right now I'm kind of concerned, since we don't have the 2 remaining commissioners, we can't even submit them for your all's consideration.
Okay. Could I ask one more question? Senator Kramer, would you mind if I Chairman, would he indulge?
We only got a couple more to go, so go ahead, Senator Manchin, then I've got a question for you.
Real quickly, the VA seems to do the best job as far as when it comes to pharmaceutical pricing.
Yes.
Okay, give me a little breakdown on that. Why can't Medicare? Why can't we copy yours? You're a single payer, right?
We are. So
Is there any way that we can integrate that into what we're trying to do with Medicare?
I'd say a couple different things. One is our ability to negotiate drug prices saves taxpayers billions of dollars and increases, saves veterans.
You're the lowest cost, basically, of any of the providers we have in federal government. Medicaid's next, and then Medicare just balls to the wall, let them get whatever they can.
Well, and we are very proud of our pharmaceutical formulary. And I'd be more than happy to have our team come up and brief.
Has anybody ever approached you from Medicare or Medicaid or any of our other agencies?
We've provided technical assistance to members of the Senate of the House over time, including in the context of the negotiations you're now having.
I'm talking with the Medicare provider,
Correct.
The federal government, Medicare.
Correct. And so what I understand
is that possible? Is it possible for us to integrate with your?
We think it is. We think it is we have demonstrated that it's sound medical and fiscal policy to negotiate drug prices, and we do it well. The question of should you use our formulary is more complicated. The way the House has done it is the House has said, as I read the bill, HHS should negotiate based off average international market price. And if there's not an average international market price, I have to imagine that for every known pharmaceutical there is an international price, then you can look at VA and others. My view on that is the average international market price is the right way to go, and it gives you the leverage that you need to do the negotiation. We're very proud of the way we do it. I think we've demonstrated that negotiation actually saves dollars. And I think that's consistent with what the House has in its Build Back Better.
Sounds like a winner to me.
I'm with you.
Thank you, Secretary. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you,
Senator
Member,
Manchin.
thank you so much.
Senator Manchin, just because the ranking member and I are so concerned, did you get these medicinal shots delivered by needle or by some other method? Okay. All right. Senator Kramer.
I couldn't have done so well with those 3 minutes, so I'll let him keep them. Do you know what the score of the Concordia St. John's football game was this fall?
I do.
I was hoping you'd say no, but.
I'm also aware of the way the Johnnies lost on Saturday to Linfield, Oregon, and so I'm kind of bummed out.
Yeah, it's.
Senator Kramer, I don't.
Never mind. If he's not going to tell you, I'm sure as heck not going to.
I know who sits where.
By the way, I know that Senator Hassan expressed appreciation, and I want to join her in appreciation for VA supporting our legislation to get this burial rights, equitable rights straightened out for our Guard members. Thanks for that. And General Quinn, as you probably know, was out in North Dakota last week and talked to some folks. So anyway, but
he told me it's really windy and cold.
That hardly ever happens there. I don't know what he's talking about. He's from Montana, for crying out loud. How big a deal could it be? Sure. Yeah.
I will just say on that bill, Senator Kramer, I thought that worked really well. You all raised this to my attention. Mm-hmm. We dug into it. And I think very transparently, straightforwardly, our teams working together, we came to a good outcome. I think I'm really proud of that work.
We just have to pass it.
Yep.
We have a way of complicating simple things around here, however, you might have noticed. You might recall that one of my main focuses on the committee, particularly last Congress, but also this Congress, of course, is the use of HBOT.
Yeah.
And we were able to get some language into a bill last year.
Yes.
S-785 that's now law, of course. And I'm just going to read a couple of lines from the bills so that we can then talk about that. You know it well.
Yep.
The law will authorize the Secretary of the VA to enter into public-private partnerships to research the effectiveness of hyperbaric oxygen therapy, will require the VA to use an objective test to measure the effectiveness of hyperbaric oxygen therapy, and will commission a comprehensive review and study of HBOT, both within the VA and in outside organizations. The study would be completed with a recommendation from the VA about the effectiveness of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. All right. So that was last Congress. You and I talked about it at the beginning.
Yep.
It's still, I don't know, some days you may feel like you've been there for years, and some days it may seem like last week. I don't know. But it's been...
Most days it feels like a long time.
Yeah, I bet it does. And time does fly. But maybe if you could just give me a little bit of update where we might be on that.
So I'm really glad you asked about this, and I knew you would. So we submitted our first report to you all in October. We have 2 remaining issues on the language that you just read, and so I want to read these 2 issues to make sure I get them right.
Thank you.
Issue 1, Section 702, subsection D, requires us to commence a study on, quote, all individuals receiving HBOT through the current pilot program, which you just read, to provide HBOT to veterans to, quote, determine the efficacy and effectiveness of HBOT for the treatment of PTS and TBI. The program evaluation, i.e. the pilot program, is not considered a research study, and therefore commencing research activities with veterans who have agreed to participate in the program evaluation, i.e. the pilot program, poses an ethical risk because they entered into the program under a different pretense, according to our team. Issue number 2, 702D, requires VA to commence a study, outcomes related to the efficacy and effectiveness of HBOT are not assessed as part of the pilot program. And there's some necessary components of human subject clinical trials that are not included in the pilot program. So the point is, we did the pilot program, but it's not a sufficient or ethical basis on which to make the research conclusions. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do, but it's also, I think it's why we put in the law both within the VA and outside organizations.
Yeah.
That, so that we could put together a large enough sample.
Yeah, so it now makes more sense to me what Coach Tuberville was asking, because he made this point about outside participants. So let me take these 2 questions and make sure I understand them and come back to you guys.
No, that would be great. I would appreciate that. And I know it's complicated, but I also know, and that you and I talked about this before you went to the job. General Quinn and I talked about it when I warned him about burial rights for Guard members. I said, because it sounds so easy until you get there and you bump up against that giant wall called bureaucracy. It's not mean-spirited, it's just bureaucracy, and it gets in the way. And people that don't want to do certain things find it very easy to not do those things. So that'd be great if you get that for me. And maybe it's an opportunity to just renew the invitation to come out to Fargo.
I was saying to Quinn that I was jealous that he went, and I look forward to come. I will come. I hope to come this year. I just run out of real estate, but I will. I definitely look forward to.
You can't be everywhere every week, that for sure. And but sometime on your way to Stillwater, it's not that far. And as I know about you, February won't scare you. I mean, you're going to Alaska, it sounds like.
I'm going to Alaska in 2 weeks. I don't know. And I'm actually going to have to get a new quote for that.
Yeah. Oh, good. So, well, then you'll be ready for Fargo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, we'd love to have you, of course.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for your service.
Yeah. Thank you.
Senator Kramer, can I just make a quick request? Could you tell us the score of the Concordia St. John's game? You can't.
It was a lot to nothing.
It was a lot to nothing? Okay, we can make the assumption.
You can assume from there.
Senator Moran. Oh, you're right. Thank you very much. We have Senator Sinema online.
Oh, great.
Thank you, Chairman Chester, and thank you, Ranking Member Moran, for holding this hearing, and thank you, Secretary McDonough, for appearing before the committee today. I appreciate the time you spent at the Phoenix VA Medical Center in August, and as we've discussed, the Arizona VA medical care system serves a large and growing population. They have a number of construction needs to better serve the community. Among these projects is the need for new bed tower and long-term care facility at the Phoenix VA, which is undergoing a feasibility study right now. The Tucson VA Medical Center also needs a new bed tower, and these are both major construction projects. I'm looking forward to working with you and the committee to move these projects forward so Arizona veterans can get the care that they've earned. I'm grateful for the partnership between the American Legion, the VA, and Philips Healthcare that brought an Atlas pod to Wickenburg, Arizona. And I also appreciate that the VA team is continuing to update my staff on this pilot. In these conversations, we've been concerned that the VA is seeing low utilization of the pod, not just in Arizona, but at other sites. So we've connected Arizona State University with the VA to explore how local community partnerships might help build success for these pods. Do you see these types of local collaborations beneficial to the pilot? And if so, what steps could the VA take nationally to build these kinds of collaborations?
Yeah, it's a fair question, and thanks very much, Senator. The bottom line is we have seen uneven use of the pods in the Atlas program. So I think the kinds of things that we can do are the kinds of things that you're exploring, including these local partnerships, including with Arizona State, which has a significant veteran population. And so we believe that local partnerships are useful. We also think that the Atlas project being a partnership with the Legion itself makes it very attractive for further partnerships. But all of this is to say, too, that I have noticed underutilization of the pods in different places across the country that's not isolated to Arizona. So we are looking at that to try to get to the bottom of it.
Great. You know, veterans in Arizona consistently reach out to my office with questions and concerns about accessing dental care. Dental care is a critical aspect of whole health, and access to these services is important for veterans. In Arizona, we have some wonderful programs that provide discount or free dental services to veterans, including participation by local dental schools, but the demand far outweighs the supply. And that's why I'm particularly interested in the Vet Smile pilot program that was started in New York and New Jersey in July to help veterans access free or discounted dental services. Now, I know it's early in the pilot launch, but are there any updates you can share about its progress?
No, but I've just taken note of it, and I will get back to you concretely with it, because I agree with both I obviously agree with the thrust of the question, and I'm embarrassed to confess that I don't know much about Vet Smile pilot, so I'll dig into it and I'll get back to you on it.
Great. As we get that information, I'd ask you to consider working with my office as the VA is expanding the pilot program. We'd like you to consider launching a pilot in Arizona.
Good. We'll be happy to work with you.
Great. You know, as we talk to our Arizona VA Medical Center homeless program offices and all the organizations that support veterans experiencing homelessness, we encountered two recurring issues. VA Medical Center HUD-VASH case managers are managing growing caseloads, and their time is divided with other responsibilities. There's also a lack of housing that actually accept these vouchers. So while there are vouchers available for veterans, there's no housing to place them in. So how is the VA assessing the staffing levels and support for homelessness prevention efforts, and what efforts are being taken to address the lack of housing, particularly in crowded urban areas like Phoenix, where landlords don't have an incentive to participate in HUD-VASH, or in more rural areas where there's just a lack of landlords and housing?
Yeah, it's a good question. The bottom line is we have to get better about staffing up those offices. We're now operating under a new authority in the Roe Isaacson Act that said if by October 1 of this year we were not at full capacity with hired staff, that we need to go out and contract staff. So our homeless program office is filling those vacant staff slots with contracted staff. So that's the most important thing we can do, Senator, is actually get people in those chairs, because they should not be as pulled among multiple assignments as they currently are. And when they are not pulled among multiple assignments as they are currently, they can actually make a better case to the landlords. And so these two issues are related. We are seeing a lot of good progress in Los Angeles and throughout California, frankly, by partnering with local nonprofit housing advocates. And I think that that's got to be part of the solution, in addition to these hiring contracted staff to the challenge in Arizona. But let me take that one too and come back to you with something more concrete on it.
I appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, my time's expired. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Sinema. Senator Moran.
Chairman, thank you. I'll do my best to be brief. And you too, Mr. Secretary, be brief for all of our benefits. You mentioned third-party administrators need to step up. What do you have in mind?
Well, I just think that they know these markets well. I think they can help us understand the full complexity of the market, the range of providers in the market, and help market us to those providers. So that's what I mean. They're out in the market. We should empower them with timely payments. We should empower them with professional experience with us. And then we should expect of them that they help build robust networks for us. Does that make sense?
It does, and I'm happy to try to encourage that as well. I would highlight for you a topic that I've had with you and with the third-party administrators. Currently, the third-party administrator contracts don't include the same standards, access standards, as the law does. It's particularly true for one of the administrators because their contract was entered into before.
Right.
And we've been encouraging you to make sure the standards that are in law are the standards they have to comply with under their contract, and we've not been successful in getting that accomplished.
This is, you and I have talked about this, and I am smarter, but not yet as smart as I need to be on this. But this is one of the things that we're looking at as we do this review in anticipation of the June report to you. I think it's a very fair critique / question, as I've indicated to you before. And so let me try to make sure that we get a better answer to you.
I think we find that the networks are not as robust as they were previously, and you have veterans who are then accustomed to a provider that no longer can go to that provider. Maybe that's just the nature of changing third-party administrators, and it altered the network. At least the standards ought to be the same, and the veteran ought to be able to rely upon those standards day in and day out, year in and year out.
This is assessment, not hard intel, but we have seen, because of the pressures on providers in the community from the pandemic, a willingness to engage with us in certain markets. I don't know if that's not the case in Kansas, but it would surprise me if it's not. But it ended up being such an important source of revenue for them in the context of the pandemic that it helped actually put us in a position of a kind of a buyer's position, which I thought would therefore translate into a more robust network. So I'm surprised to hear that you're saying that's
let
not
me
the case.
make clear, I think the challenge is not that the providers aren't interested. The circumstance is the providers are interested, but they're not being, they may not meet the criteria and brought in. So that the providers are interested, and so we share that same circumstance. I also would say that our third-party administrator, when we bring a provider to their attention, they've been very cooperative in trying to bring that provider in.
Okay.
But we're happy to do the ad hoc thing, but if nobody's knocking at their door, it doesn't happen.
My instinct is that we're paying these guys a lot to help us administer these networks, and I think they can do a better job. We're also in a market that's pretty thin so far. We've really got Optum and Tri-West. We should be able to leverage a more active market there. We're surely spending enough.
My only follow-up that's left is to continue our back and forth, the letter. Oh, no, I have one more before I go to the back and forth. looking forward. We had this conversation about trying to get folks to the AIR Commission.
Yes.
And nominated.
Yes.
What I know about that is that Senator McConnell made his nomination and Representative McCarthy did as well.
Yes.
And the one I believe is the most recent is Congressman McCarthy, and it was made 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what holds this up.
I'm happy to chat with you a little bit off,
Okay.
if we can, off mic on that.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
Now, only to continue our banter on community care, but in this case, really about the responses from
Yes.
the VA. We only sent the letter on November the 12th because there was no response to the staff request on October the 4th.
Okay. Well, I take really seriously what you said to me in the last hearing, which is like, come on, man, just answer our questions. And so when I saw this, I was like, let's answer this darn thing. So I'm sorry about the October 4th thing. We'll make sure that we do a better job of it. I really think that this question about, as we've discussed, how we provide care, where we provide it, is one that benefits from our debate. And I wanted to make sure that we got you the information to inform this debate. So I apologize that didn't.
No, I
come on
appreciate
time.
at least your statement and perhaps your belief that our circumstances benefit the cause. And I don't want to be the proverbial pain that you just decide to write off, never satisfied. And
Well,
so,
unfortunately, I don't really have that option.
I don't like the way you say that.
Even if it were my
Because
predisposition.
it suggests you'd like to do that. We'll continue to work closely together to see if we can't resolve this circumstance.
Good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Moran. I would just say what I've said before in this regard, and that is that we can outsource the work, and we can, and we should when the veteran wants it, but we can never outsource the responsibility of taking care of our veterans.
That's exactly right.
And so I think that's very important. Secretary McDonough, thank you for being here today. I appreciate your service at the VA. I also want to express my appreciation for professionalism on both sides of the dais today. I think that the committee members did well. I think you did well, and I want to thank you for that because after all, we're working for our nation's veterans and their families. And so I know we've got a strong partner in you and making sure that we're doing right by our veterans, that they get what they've earned. And I think that's really important. Thanks for being here. I think this is a good committee hearing. I will tell you that I think everybody showed up. There was only 2 that didn't ask questions because they had other conflicts. But I just want to say thank you to the committee members for being here. Thank you for being here. This record will be open for a week. And with that, the hearing is adjourned.
Thank you very much.